after a 4-year wait, guess who's back? Mr. Bond is back! Yes! You know, I think most guys love James Bond because James Bond is the fantasy that we all crave to be. You know, secret agents, you know, getting the girls, the gadgets, the cars. But lately Daniel Craig's, you know, take on the James Bond role, and the past 2 James Bond films have been more realistic, and I've actually really appreciated that more than some of the old James Bond films. This one is his 3rd time outing, Skyfall, and this one has been getting quite a lot of hype recently. I have heard that this film is meant to be a modern classic, or a James Bond classic. To me, this is giving up so much hype that I'm worried that it's just going to fall flat in its face. But I can happily report the film is actually really, really good. And in fact, it might be a classic, but you might have to wait a couple of years in order for it to become the classic that people are striving it to be. Okay, the start of the film. James Bond and his accomplice are trying to retrieve this data ROM that has all of the secret agents from, I think, MI6, you know, that are embedded in terrorist groups or other sort of, you know, other things. And it's important that they retrieve this. Sadly, however, they fail to retrieve it, but also James Bond's accomplice ends up shooting him by an order of M, you know. But they did kind of say like it was a, you know, shouldn't have a clear shot. There we go. And then a couple of months after James Bond is presumed to be dead, let's be honest, he isn't. He's alive and well, but he seems to be quite shaken to the fact that he's not the same as he was. Because after a lot of shit goes down at sort of MI6, you know, the building kind of blows up a bit and then agents started falling. James Bond returns, but he's not the same guy that they hired him to begin with. You know, he's kind of broken in a way, but they still send him out onto the field, and because he needs to try and find who is behind it as soon as he finds, in order to sort of finish this mission off. And it just gets better and better every point through the way of the film. Daniel Craig as James Bond is amazing still. Like, this is probably one of the best James Bond characters that we've had in quite a while. I'd probably say he's better than Pierce Brosnan. I'd probably even say he's better than Tommy, something from the 2 James Bond films he did. Roger Moore, probably yes. The guy that only did 1 film, hell yeah. Sean Connery, no. It's hard because Sean Connery was the original James Bond. You know, he was the Bond that started the whole thing off, and yet and that James Bond is still real good. But I feel as though Daniel Craig has a good equal chance against Sean Connery. Maybe in the next film, yeah, but in this film, this was really good because this film was more about emotion. You know, emotion from like a failure to also like trying to get back into shape. Everything about it, and the past kind of like comes back to haunt in a big way. Judi Dench as M actually plays much more of a bigger role in this film than any of the other James Bond films that she has done, and the film is basically centred around her as well. She has great chemistry with Daniel Craig's James Bond, and you kind of feel as that James Bond M is more like a mother figure to him, and I think that's really shows. But there's a scene about well into the film, and she's saying a couple of things, and you kind of get the impression that she's not prepared for like the worst that's going to happen. Then we have the bad guy, Jarvis Bardem, I think it's how you pronounce it. Hang on a minute. Javier Bardem, okay? He is, I would say, the best James Bond film we've had in a while. This guy is just wanting to cause chaos, and he has one of the best opening scenes for a villain, James Bond villain, anything. It's basically not a spoiler or anything because it's in the trailers. you see James Bond tie up to a chair, and then all of a sudden the guy appears from like the lift. But what's quite good about the shot is filmed from behind Daniel Craig's back, so and he's quite like a far distance. As he's walking by, he's telling this story about these rats in this island. And what's quite interesting is while he's telling the story, and the story's actually quite interesting, quite maybe a wee bit sick, he starts to show, you get to see his face a bit more as it comes up, and I think that is pretty damn cool. Because you don't need to see the film straight away, you just need to build up the expectation for it. And for one last thing, Q comes back to the James Bond films, and it's portrayed by Ben Whishaw. This guy, I've never heard of him at all in any other film, but when I saw him I was like, very intriguing, a young Q, but this is what the film kind of needed. You know, it needed to show a bit more modern, because we can't always have like old people being Q or, you know, so far, because you feel as though that they're just living in the times. This guy lives like in the future, and I love the kind of scenes that he comes in. Like, he has really good scenes in the film, and I absolutely love it. What do I don't like? Actually, I don't really like the Bond girls a lot in this film. This is like probably the first time in a James Bond film I didn't really like the Bond girls. I mean, yeah, the first one you see, she's pretty good. She's more of like James Bond equal, or, you know, puts James Bond sort of like grounded in a way, but they don't really sort of do much with her. Like, you kind of wish they actually did. And then you got the other one who again has a great sort of introduction and whatnot, but I just don't feel as though there was nothing between this girl. I don't think James Bond actually really cared about her, only cared about the job in hand. And I get that sort of feeling that she's probably just like in the way, like she only had a purpose, and then once that purpose was fulfilled, you know, she was done. Other than that, is the film a classic as they say? I'm probably going to say so, yeah. It will be a classic in years to come, probably until the next one comes out. But for now, it's a really good 2012 film. Probably one of the best films of this year. And for that reason, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I will buy it on Blu-ray straight away. And I probably will go and see it again. It deserves another viewing, in my opinion. And you're going to be amazed at the end. Like, the end is just nicely tied up all together.